Okay, we're talking with Professor Owen Skae of the Rhodes Business School. Welcome.
Thank you,
Professor
Kieran.
Owen Skae.
Great to be
Tell
here.
us a little bit about the Rhodes Business School and your role in it.
So Rhodes Business School has been around for about 20 years now. I've been the director now, it's my 10th year. We're one of the smallest business schools in South Africa. We're AMBA accredited, which means our MBA is internationally accredited. And we believe that our geographical location puts us in a situation where we really think fundamentally about the things that we need to do as business leaders and managers to solve the issues of the world, country, continent. Because Makanda is a microcosm of South Africa.
Right.
You've got a world-class university with eminent scientists pushing out research. And 5 kilometers away, you've got people who don't have access to running water. So it makes it very apparent to our students that we have to do things differently. And our essence is leadership for sustainability. And I think that Rhodes Business School is arguably acknowledged as being the leading business school for teaching ethics and sustainability and responsible leadership.
So are those areas of specialization at Rhodes Business School, ethics, corporate governance, those issues that you focus on particularly?
Absolutely, and we were the first business school in Africa to formally mainstream environmental management into our program. Now, what we found though is that we were attracting environmental managers who wanted to learn about business. So we broadened that to sustainability. Now, that was already before the global financial crisis. Essentially what happened was many business schools came under fire by saying, your MBAs, Harvard's, etc. You generate these MBAs that go and work for these big banks that then bankrupt the world. So for us, it was never a knee jerk. My predecessor had vision to see that this is where the world was going. So environmental management was broadened to be sustainability mainstream, because for us, it's not about environmental managers coming to learn about business because you come from a science background perhaps. It's about whether you're a chartered accountant, whether you're a lawyer, whatever you come from, is that there's business principles that need to be applied. Because for us, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how you make your money, how you create value. And it's not about sustainability, it's about sustainable.
Well, have a look at the corporate scandals that are going on in South Africa over the last couple of years. We have the Zondo Commission that is revealing this wrongdoing, where it seems accountants and chartered accountants in particular, because they do have a very privileged position in corporate life, have been enablers of this. What's gone wrong?
It is complex, but I think ultimately, as a chartered accountant, you're governed by a code of ethics, you have professional ethics, but there are institutional factors that sometimes come into play. And we cannot underestimate the fact that these lines of defense get broken. So from the point of view of the organizational context, I think that there are people still who sit on boards who are there for not the right reason. They're not there to act in the best interest of the company. They're there for their own private self-interest. That the kind of leadership development that needs to be embedded to actually understand what acting in the best interest of the company is. So we teach ethical organization, and very often, or the way that I teach it is it's more based on the philosophy that underpins what good corporate governance is about. So before we can even begin to talk about how you structure your audit committee and your remuneration committee and the majority of the board being independent or non-executive directors, there's a philosophy that underpins this. And so our frame of reference must in fact be guided by that. So you look at the work of Dan Ariely, for example, a behavioral economist. There's some tremendous work that's been done in this regard. And ultimately, we also have to acknowledge that chartered accountants you can't just do it by yourself. So there's somebody else involved. There's
Yes.
maybe a lawyer, there's an engineer.
Or a public
and then
official.
It becomes systemic.
Yeah.
And then people start to turn a blind eye to that. And that's where the lines of defense get broken down. And that's ultimately where you need people of integrity. You need to have people who understand what it means to act in the best interest of the company. And ultimately it's about what we need to do for the stakeholders, because they're the ones who withdraw the license to operate. So it was only a matter of time before the license to withdraw.
Is ethics something that you can actually teach in a course? We've had this discussion many times on CFO Talks with chief financial officers,
Yes.
and I think the best explanation that has come up is, what is ethical? Is ethical? Would I be proud for my children to know that I'm doing this?
No.
I think that's quite a good measuring stick, because what you see happening with all of these codes of, how accountants should behave, that are being released by our good friends down the corner there, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants and other bodies around the world, it's become very rules-based. In other words, why do you need to be told what is ethical when innately you should know that?
Kieran, you're absolutely right. And it's not a quick fix thing. It's not as simple as just teaching it. And in fact, I was once involved I was running an exec ed course. And there's a Laura Nash, you go through these questions, and one of them is, would you tell everybody on TV what you did or didn't do? And one of the executives, quick as a flash, said to me, but people do it all the time. So that test doesn't apply here.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what happens now is that as what we call these lines of defense, ultimately what needs to happen is that management is the first line of defense. The second line of defense would be something like your insurance policy. The third line of defense is your internal audit, your external auditors. Then we have to understand how the board is structured. These are all done in a particular way. But the problem with all of these corporate scandals is you find that this breaks down. And then the reasons for that are complex. People get bullied into submission, they get threatened, you wave big wads of notes in front of their face.
Right.
So this is where you need people of courage. And the King Code talks about these moral principles. So ultimately, with ethical culture, do we understand what integrity means? Do we understand what competence means? Do we responsibility, accountability, fairness and transparency? But we are all disappointed in our leadership right now.
Right.
And I think
in both the private and the public sector.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Final question for you, Professor. Tito and Mboweni released a document for rebooting the South African economy a week ago. What's your take on that? Is it going to work?
I think I fully support it.
Yeah.
About a year ago, I was asked to write about the Jobs Summit, and it got quite a bit of press about it. I was quite scathing about that document because I felt that it wasn't thought through. And there's certain statements that I'm fast forward a year later.
Yeah.
And that's on the base. What he's done now is he's thrown this thing out there. Hasn't consulted. Now,
what was your difficulty with the Job Summit report?
Because it doesn't address the fundamental issues of what need to be addressed. So
what are those fundamentals?
Well, part of those is sorting out corruption.
Right.
Part of that is dealing with systemic issues. The fact that we continue to try to do the same thing, expecting to get a different outcome.
Right.
So, unless those parts are addressed, you can talk about creating jobs till the cows come home.
Yeah.
But I think that this is an example now where Treasury, who actually take note of what money comes into South African incorporated banks account and the money goes out, are tearing their hair out.
Yeah.
Because every day they've got to find billions of rand to pay for interest. So I think they've gone ahead and said, look, we're going to throw this out there. Now, it's already got a reaction. The DA have said we're in favour of it. COSATU and other trade unions and other political parties have said, people are saying the president needs to come out and decide, is he in support of this or not? The ANC perhaps are divided around it. Perhaps it's an attempt by a person who's showing himself to be a bit of a maverick to say, let's throw this out there. And I think it's a good thing to throw it out there. We'll have to see what happens next.
The cure for joblessness is just economic growth. Absolutely. At the end of the day, if you have too much government interference, we're going to give special subsidies, as we have in the motor sector, which is a great South African success story. I think it's 1 million people employed in that sector. And I think the Department of Trade and Industry sees, we can take that template and we can apply that in other areas. But surely the thing to do is just get the economy growing and let the private sector sort of just suck up those people who are currently unemployed. Bearing in mind Is it more than 50% of the youth in South Africa don't have jobs?
Well, it depends, because if you look at university graduates, it's nowhere near that figure. And this is why universities are under huge pressure at the moment, because if you come to a university, you get a higher qualification, the likelihood of you being employed is quite high.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, and then if you look at Gigi Orcock, he believes that the informal unemployment rate is 12%. Some people say formal it's 29%. Who do you believe? We don't have the data. We don't really know for sure.
Yeah.
Often we're shooting in the dark. But I come
But
back.
Stats SA is saying 29%.
Yes,
Yeah.
Gigi Orcock now, who do we actually know for sure? Are we sure? We need to obviously get this data, but at the same time, we can't wait for this data. National health insurance. I would ask my personal opinion. The only way I believe this can be implemented is through a public-private partnership. So the way that government and business engage with one another needs to change that. That's going to unlock the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I think that at the end of the day, if we look at what Tito Mbowene's documents put out, the Telkom CEO has come out and has spoken very robustly about a complete misunderstanding about what that means for the telecom sector. Now, what needs to happen is that they need to engage immediately about this and say, okay, what is it that we need to do? Then if it means at the presidential level there's some kind of strong basis to ensure that the barriers are unlocked and we start to implement it, then I think people are going to see this government and this private sector and whoever is fully determined to make this country work, because we've got all the potential in order to do it. But we're going to need CEOs to do it. We're going to need CFOs. But we need ethical CEOs.
Right.
We need people who see how we create value. And it's never going to be about me. It's about what I must do to act in the best interest of the organization that I'm with.
Professor, let's leave it at that. Thank you for talking to us.